Hey everybody, Dutchsinse here. It is 2:26 a.m. Central Time on Wednesday, December 28th, 2016. And I've got a breaking news alert for everybody. Just over the past few minutes, and you hear it dinging on the screen here right now, a 5.8 up to 6.0 magnitude earthquake has struck in western Nevada, eastern California, right at the California-Nevada border. Now, it's imperative that we go look up this earthquake. This is the largest earthquake to strike this region in many years' time. I would like to point out, in my update at 10 p.m. last night, we specifically talked about this location, and when I pull it up on Google Earth and you guys see where the location is, I think you're going to get a better understanding of why this large earthquake has just struck. Now, we warned last night that there was built-up pressure in between the West Coast and Oklahoma. And we brought up the location near Mammoth Mountain. Now here's Mammoth Mountain right here to the south. The earthquake has struck just across the border, right next to a series of volcanoes that I've shown over the past several days and weeks. This is Aurora Crater. We also have an unnamed volcanic butte here, which, if you take a look at it, rises about 300 feet off the desert floor. I've shown it so many times in past videos. This is a lava flow. Take a look at it. We've got the obsidian, still cinders exposed, and the cone there, and it's next to Aurora Crater, which is another volcano that I mentioned in yesterday's update, when we talked about the pressure trapped between the northwest coast of California and Oklahoma. Now, we also talked about how pressure was going to be transferring from the west coast into the Midwest. Now, I would dare say that the earthquake that struck up here off the coast was indeed that 5.7 that we were looking for to begin with. Now, you may remember we issued a warning for the west coast to be struck by a 5.7 to 5.8 earthquake this week, and we specifically issued the warning for here along the coast. And earlier today, something in the 5.0 range struck, but they did a dramatic magnitude to a magnitude and a half downgrade. The highest magnitude that was detected was 6.9 here off the coast on the Juan de Fuca. But now it's been definitely followed by a near 6.0 earthquake at the California border, which lends credence to the fact that the earthquake earlier today was much greater than 4.3 that they ultimately went with. Now, what does this mean for the area? First of all, this large of an earthquake striking at a volcano, and look where it is in proximity to these volcanoes, guys. We're talking about right on the flank. Now, I'm not saying we're looking at a potential of an eruption, but I am going to tell you there's some geothermal features around here, like geysers, for instance, that are off the side of Pyramid Lake to the north, and these geyser fields down to the south at Long Valley. This is called, Whitmore Hot Springs, that you might not want to be doing any dipping into any hot springs anytime soon, because this amount of pressure coming in underneath the volcanoes indicates that there could be an increase in geothermal activity, possibly. And again, there's a low probability of this, and I mean less than 1%. I mean, that's even pushing it, but there is a possibility it could cause an eruption. I'm not saying it's going to, but the possibility is there. With an earthquake down at this depth, and when we take a look at the depth of the earthquake, it's at 19 kilometers. Well, unfortunately, this is approximately the same depth as the Mono Lake supervolcano that's just to the south, this giant lake here. Now, the lake actually has a rising dome that's coming out of the center, and you can see that. It's been rising for several hundred years. So it hasn't erupted in a very long time, but this is a supervolcano, half the size of Yellowstone. And to the south, this is the Long Valley Caldera, where Mammoth Mountain is, where I'm sure people might even be skiing right about now. But maybe not now, because if there's snow on the mountains, there may be some avalanches. Now, there's craters down in here, Inyo craters, several different, and this is marked by the Smithsonian, by the way. Feel free to pause that and read that. But overall, this area in California that just got hit, look, I mean, it's right on the flanks of 4 volcanoes that I've shown you at least 24 times in the last few months. Again, longtime viewers in here, I don't know how many people are currently in here right now, but I'm willing to bet a fair amount of people are going to start coming in soon. That the people that have been in here longest know Look, guys, we've shown this location so many times in the past. The reason we've shown it in the past is because of the swarms that have been striking there. The reason the swarms strike there is because of movement that strikes off the coast. And the movement that struck off the coast certainly has caused this movement now. Now check it out, guys. Take a look at the screen. There is now a subsequent 5.3 that is listed. So not only a 5.8, but a 5.3 has also occurred. This is being listed by the Europeans, and the depth is 30 kilometers. The time on this is 8:18:08, and the time on the other earthquake is 8:18. So this is actually, I would say, 8 seconds later. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, it means that there's two different earthquakes detected. One by the Europeans, one by the USGS. Two different locations, two different times. Meaning that's the span that is moving right now, this distance. So see where the 5.8 is, and see where the European earthquake is reported due east, northeast. Let's get our coordinates and go put those in comparison to the USGS marked earthquake. So that we're going to do this the same way. We're going to pull the coordinates, we're going to put them in on Google Earth. Now you remember, we just zoomed in on those volcanoes. So it's going to be a little bit east of those 4 volcanoes. Aurora Peak, Aurora Crater, and the unnamed volcanic butte. Okay, so here we go. Now unfortunately, this is the Hawthorne military arsenal. Now don't worry, guys, this is not an underground explosion of any kind, but this is a worry for these bunkers that are usually stacked full of ammunitions of different kinds. So this is a large ammunition depot here. The earthquake reported here down to the south. Look, it's right on the flanks of an ancient butte. And I would dare say that's so old. I mean, we shouldn't even call it a butte. We shouldn't even call it a volcano. But yes, it was formed at some point in the past volcanically. Now, also, one thing I would like to point out to you that I noticed in the past when I've done research here, you'll notice, you see this circular formation here? When I zoom in here, you're going to see Black Dyke Mountain. Let me get that. Yeah, there it is. Black Dyke Mountain. And this is a dike volcano that is formed over a long time. It's many layers thick, and you can see the coloring on that. This is not false color. This is real color, guys. So you can see the cinders associated with a lot of these flows, and this is overall a giant caldera in itself surrounded by volcanoes. Now, it's older, and I think it's possibly even related to the former Mono Lake volcanic field, and it's just further placed out here. It's been filled in with sand. It may be even formed back when this was all underwater. Everywhere where you see these white sandy basins, at some point in the past, this was an interior ocean across Nevada going into California. So if you're just now tuning in, be aware that a very large earthquake has struck at the California-Nevada border. Now, the Europeans have just revised their coordinates and magnitude, and the USGS has also revised their coordinates and their magnitude, both to be coinciding with one another. That's normal, at 5.7. So, at this point, I'd like to actually jump over and look at our origin information. This is actually going to show us the magnitudes that were detected at the location. Now, we're going to get, okay, they're still doing computations on the phases. So here's our phases, here's our residuals, arrival times, our degree angle, our distance, but they're calculating the magnitudes right now. Eventually, what's going to happen here in the next few minutes, or maybe even an hour, is that this page here where it says details, I'll be able to click on that and it'll give us the station magnitudes. Until that information becomes available, let's go over to the seismologist page for the EMSC. It's the same information, it's just going to be given to us. USGS is sitting on top of it. So here's our station information, and USGS is still sitting on top of it. This is being reported by the NEIC, the National Earthquake Information Center. So everybody now is waiting on the earthquake information to be coming out of the NEIC. Yep, all the stations reporting are being reported by USGS sources. Okay, we'll wait for it, not a problem. Just understand that this 5.8 may go up or down depending on what the ultimate station magnitude list is. People reporting it coming into the chat room right now said it was scary, said that it was something that shook them, it startled them, knocked things around in their houses from what I'm reading here in chat. So, guys, this is a large earthquake. It's the largest earthquake to strike the Intermountain West in many years' time. This follows our movement off the coast earlier today, which now I am 100% positive was greater than 4.3. We forecast a 5.7 to 5.8 for the West Coast to be striking today. And now a 5.7, 5.8 has struck on top of the 5.7 or larger earthquake that struck here, which they downgraded by a magnitude and a half. I showed that in my 10 p.m. update. In my 10 p.m. update, which is now saved over on my YouTube channel for all time immortal for people to review, warned the location between where the 4.3 is off the coast. You see that here. I'm going to blink it on and off. Okay, 4.3 off the coast. And we warned the area between the 4.3 and Oklahoma and said that there's a tremendous amount of building stress in the region. And I brought up Mammoth Mountain and the swarm at Mammoth Mountain and talked about how Mammoth Mountain had been releasing with this built-up pressure that was striking in that region. Now it gets hit by a 5.7, 5.8 earthquake. That fulfills our West Coast earthquake warning. It is a few hundred miles off from the location we warned. I will take it as a hit since it's the largest earthquake in years and we got it down to the day. Location is just a little bit off. However, the people in California, I'm sure you're relieved to have gotten the warning in time, right? So 2 earthquakes struck, both significant. What does this mean for the rest of the United States? What does this mean for Southern California? What does this mean for the location in question? Well, the location in question, as I showed you, is a volcano. So, all right, we got our earthquake striking. Actually, let's get our new revised coordinates from the USGS, just to make sure. Whoops, that's the Europeans. If you're just now tuning in, the largest earthquake in years at the Intermountain West has struck, and it struck at the California-Nevada border. And when I show you what's there, I think you're going to be interested. I think anybody with half a brain would be interested to see this earthquake epicenter because of what resides there. Take a look. So here it is. You know what? Let me back this out so you can see that we're zooming in on California. We'll do it CNN style. You know how they zoom in on the Earth? Okay. Here we are. We're zooming in on Earth. And we'll let the computer sort this out. As we zoom in, you're going to start to notice a few things nearby. Okay, first of all, we've got a desert floor, but just a couple miles away, close enough to certainly be related. These multiple volcanoes, Aurora Crater, we'll zoom in on this, and you can still see the obsidian and exposed cinder and basalt associated with these craters. Aurora Peak volcano, down to the south, of course older, but still has a tuft on top visible from aerial view. Mount Hicks volcano, but the one that I always show, and I've shown many times in the past, the reason I've shown this many times in the past is because of the swarms that have been striking here over the past few months. We've had swarms of smaller earthquakes striking at this ancient unnamed lava flow or old sill that formed off of a crater that's barely visible now. Here, okay, so you see that there. That's the original flow point. It came out, flowed down. Look how high that is off the desert floor. That had to be a very, very viscous, thick, chunky lava flow, not a very smooth, liquid flowing one. So when it burst out under heavy pressure, and that pressure is introduced from the West Coast. That's why it's been hit now. The reason an earthquake struck there now is the same reason that there's volcanoes there now, is because when there's hard pressure coming in from the West Coast and it's pushing to the east-southeast, one of the first thing it hits are these volcanoes. There's only one other set of volcanoes in between there, and let's zoom in and show you. Here in northern Sacramento Valley, West Butte and South Butte volcano, which they're ironically fracking, by the way. Just take a look at that. Real good idea, right? Frack the volcano in California. That's a moonbeam idea, right, guys? Okay, there you go. So down here to the east-southeast, you can clearly see the volcanoes at the location and the largest earthquake in years striking. So, if you're in California, this is why you need to be prepared. This is why you need to have a plan. This is why you need to know what to do when a large earthquake strikes late night, midnight for you, right? So here it is, midnight. A lot of people are asleep. The largest earthquake in years hits, and they didn't know to watch out for a 5.7 in Northwest California or any of California. And both spots were struck. So off the coast of Oregon, northwest of California, then the 5.7 hitting at the California-Nevada border. This means for Southern California and east by southeast, we could see a dramatic increase in seismic activity pushing to the east. And over to the east, we have the Craton Edge. Now, the Craton Edge consists of the mountain ranges, of course. They go all the way up here, up into Canada. But as we go down to the south, you can clearly see we're looking at a bend that goes up through Texas and into Oklahoma. Now, the previous earthquake, the 3.2 that struck earlier today, was a result of the 4.3. But now we have the 5.7 to contend with, pushing over to the east. Now, how much of that energy is going to be conserved? Is it going to stay at 5.7, pushing over to the east, or is it going to lose some steam, pushing across the edge of the plate? I would dare say it's going to lose some steam. It has to go down, around, across the mountain ranges of the Intermountain West. Unfortunately, this now means the fracking operations in Colorado, North and South Colorado, Wyoming and Yellowstone, also Southwest Texas, Dallas, Oklahoma, Kansas. Look, you guys need to be on serious watch for larger earthquake activity near your pumping operations. Excluding Wyoming, you have a double whammy to watch, which is Yellowstone up in the northwest portion of the state, and the fracking operations south of Yellowstone, which populates south of Jackson all the way down to the border. Yes, they are fracking near Yellowstone. So, that location just so happens to be the edge of the Craton. And the Craton is just a geologist word for the interior portion of the plate that hasn't moved in a long time. But guess what happens? When large earthquakes strike on the west coast, it puts pressure to the east on that edge of the Craton, and it displaces the edge of the Craton to the east, which then excites the fracking operations and the drill spots where they're drilling for oil and gas. And the oil and gas drill ops are thousands of points where humans have drilled thousands of feet down into the crust, making weak spots, perforations on the interior edge of the plate. They never knew, up until I came along, that pressure transfers from the west coast to the east coast in a matter of days. Now they know, but unfortunately it's too late. They've already fractured Humpty Dumpty. It's already drilled through, which means that there's no filling it with concrete. There's no fixing it. It's broken. The edge of the plate is broken in Colorado, Oklahoma, Kansas, and Texas due to the fracking and the oil drilling. So pressure breaks there and finds the weakest point to release on its way across the plate. It used to go over to the New Madrid seismic zone where I live, here in Missouri, and just south of St. Louis, this N-shaped bend, this literal bend in the plate, that's where the pressure used to catch. It would get here and it couldn't go back down and around, and so the pressure would build and build and build here until it released in a large earthquake. But now Oklahoma, southern Colorado, Texas, you guys are the new Madrid seismic zone. So now you've had a large earthquake to your west, which means be on watch. Next 72 hours. Actually, let's put a 4-day watch on it. Next 96 hours. Okay? So 4 days from now, where does that put us? That puts us on New Year's Day. By New Year's Day, we should see this pressure transfer to the east. Sometimes it only takes a few hours, so you need to be on watch now till New Year's. Okay? New Year's Day. And it could be large. It could be equal in size to the 5.7 that hit over here at the California-Nevada border. It's amazing that it happens, but it could happen. The chances are it could very well happen very soon. So, let's recap. If you're just now tuning in, a large earthquake, the largest earthquake to strike in years, has struck at the California-Nevada border. At the location we were talking about last night in my 10 p.m. update. Mammoth Mountain. Right next to Mammoth Mountain, there's Aurora Crater, Aurora Peak. Let's zoom in and show you. There's multiple volcanoes at the location where this very large earthquake has occurred. Aurora Crater here, you can see it from above, and an unnamed volcanic butte here. Now there may be some designation for it at some point, but there is nothing available for download on Google Earth or USGS. This is all we've got. So you can see the lava flow on this, you can see the crater on the other volcano, and you can understand the largest earthquake in years has struck there due to pressure. Pressure coming up from off the coast. Earlier today, off the coast, as high as a 6.9 was reported. They downgraded it, and downgraded it, and downgraded it, and it was the proverbial, if a tree falls in the woods and no one's there to hear it, does it make any sound? So the geologist, seismologist, went with the lower magnitude on that, but now it's pretty obvious. It's pretty obvious the earthquake off the coast earlier today was larger than a 4. And it's also obvious that the 5.7, 5.8 that we were looking for to strike on the west coast has now struck. So the distance we were looking for was Eureka off the coast, and I would dare say it's right on the borderline of what I would consider even acceptable earthquake forecast-wise. We had warned Northern California, Northwest California, and instead Central California was hit. We warned for a 5.7 to 5.8 to strike today. So, I don't know. I'm a one-man operation trying to forecast earthquakes for the whole planet, okay? So maybe we should take that into account as well. But there it is. The methodology, I think, holds true. Again, the largest earthquake in years has struck, and it certainly caused a shakeup in the area. And I mean, people felt it. It probably knocked things off houses. It probably knocked chimneys down. It probably caused facade damage on houses. It probably broke things inside houses. It probably scared the crap out of people. I bet the only people who weren't scared when it hit, or at least knew what to do, were my viewers. And I know I've got viewers in the area that probably felt it. 100%, I know viewers in the chat room felt it. And you knew to watch California for a 5.7. Now, again, Mammoth Mountain, what are the chances right next to Mammoth Mountain, guys? We need to be on watch for, and again, this is super, super light watch. Watch out for geothermal activity, an increase in the geysers. Watch out for the potential of a potential small eruption. It could be low, and I mean below 1% for the eruption angle. But geothermal, with an earthquake like this, yeah, you might want to stay clear of the hot springs for a minute. Or if you're going to go observe the hot springs, be careful. If you're going to go observe the geysers, be careful, because there are geysers in these locations. There are hot springs that people use, and with a large earthquake like that, I would dare say it's prudent to steer clear of getting in them. Okay? So keep watch at the other locations, and certainly, man, keep watch over in the Midwest. I mean, with a 5.7 right on your doorstep, and the pressure always comes your way, it's prudent to dust off your earthquake plans. Maybe even take a look at your shelves, see what's going to fall off. If you have insurance, make sure that you've got the insurance up to date. I don't even know what else to recommend for you. Just have a plan and be prepared. Dutchsinse, 2 earthquakes listed on EMSC. Okay, let's go take a look. All right, let's go over to our earthquake information first. List of latest earthquakes. Nevada 5.8. Let's go check the seismologist page. Let's go to latest data contributions. Nevada 5.7, Nevada 5.8. Time differential on that is... Wow. What the heck's going on here? Another 5.7 has just hit. Another 5.7 has just hit, guys. Another 5.7 weighing in now at 8:22 and 12 seconds. A second 5.7. How many stations are detecting? How many do we have on here? Boy, I don't know. I mean, I to count those. I'm not going to try and count them. I thought they'd have a station list number, but okay, several different stations now reporting a second earthquake at 8:22:12 UTC. Okay, so that's in other words 12:22, a second earthquake, a second 5.7 earthquake. This is now officially the largest earthquakes of the year for the United States. A second 5.7 has occurred. This is a big deal. It's same size as the original earthquake. This, of course, guys, if you're in California, do not panic. That's number one. Do not panic. You know what to do. This is go time. You've got your plans dusted off. You know what to do in your house when an earthquake strikes. I'm proud of my viewers on that. I know you've got it covered. And for those of you who are listening or just now tuning in and you're feeling additional shaking, understand that a series of earthquakes has occurred, the largest earthquakes in years for the United States Intermountain West. Now, on California, up in Napa, there was a 7.7, but for Nevada, for the California Intermountain West, this is the largest earthquake in years to strike this location anywhere near Nevada. So please understand that there could be additional movement that could be as large or potentially larger. And I would dare say downwind from this location, in other words, down the red arrows, you need to be on heightened alert. And this would include my neck of the woods now in the New Madrid seismic zone, with two near 6.0 earthquakes striking upstream from us. I think Oklahoma might not be able to handle the full load. And if that's the case, and Oklahoma can't handle the full load, then it's going to spill over to the next vulnerable seismic zone, which is my region. So, not only are we going to be watching for a noteworthy swarm or significant size earthquake to strike in the Midwest at the fracking operations from Colorado into Oklahoma, but we also now need to get the warning out to the people in the Midwest, in Tennessee, Arkansas, southern Missouri, possibly as far east as southeast Illinois. You see where our red arrows are, where they go through the bend here? Okay, I live in St. Louis, right at the tip of this red arrow. Like, it goes pretty much like right over my house. So, that's ironic. We didn't mean for that to happen. I hope she didn't mean for that to happen. The person who overlaid this for me, no, that was just a coincidence. But the red arrow goes right over my house in St. Louis. I didn't know that till right now. Okay, anyways, so take a look at it real close. I mean, I've looked at it close, but I didn't realize it was that close. I mean, it really does go right over here. Okay, anyways. So down to the south, we're going to be on watch. What magnitude are we going to watch for? Well, in Oklahoma, the potential for a 5.7 does exist. We've seen it go from the west coast to the Midwest to 5.7, 5.8. We've seen it happen before. 5.8 on the west coast, 5.8 in the Midwest next day. So it could happen again. Either that or a significant swarm is going to return. One or the other. The chances of nothing happening, it's out of the question. So something's going to happen downstream from this large movement, which means Oklahoma. But I don't think Oklahoma is going to be able to absorb that much pressure, which means there's going to be a spillover. Whatever's not expended in Oklahoma will be striking in the New Madrid seismic zone, which means a significant size swarm could be breaking out in South Missouri. Okay? So understand, everybody, that a noteworthy size series of earthquakes has now occurred, multiple 5.7 earthquakes, and this is being reported by the USGS and EMSC. So we have a second 5.7 on top of the original 5.7, and these are about 5 minutes apart. So we have to keep watch. This is at a 5-minute interval. We saw two different 5.7s. They're probably going to be downgraded. I see in revised and studied for years, I guarantee it. particularly because of the location of the earthquake. If you're just now tuning in, the two largest earthquakes in the Intermountain California, Nevada region have struck, and the two largest earthquakes in the past several years, on the flanks of Aurora Crater and an unnamed volcanic butte. The unnamed volcanic butte may have a mountain designation somewhere from the USGS topography map or cartography. So we'll have to find out what the name of this is, if there is a name. But just understand, these are ancient volcanoes. They're on the flanks of Mono Lake supervolcano. This is close enough to be related. Okay? Now, we're not saying it's going to erupt. No one's saying that there's going to be eruption. The chances would be less than 1%. But it's a large, large earthquake beneath some active or ancient volcanoes. Both are active and ancient, I should say. Mono Lake active, Long Valley active. These volcanoes, ancient. Could erupt again, though. When you really look at them, they're slightly covered in vegetation, but the lava flows down to the south aren't. Or, I'm sorry, up to the north, I guess technically that is. So be aware. That's not something that we should just dismiss. It's a very large earthquake and series of earthquakes striking next to some volcanoes at the California-Nevada border. We issued a warning for a 5.7, 5.8 to be striking today, yesterday going into today, and here it is. Now, we talked about an earthquake off the coast earlier. That also was near, I would dare say, at least mid-range 5. It was picked up as high as 6.9. Topping out at 6.9, many different upper 4s and mid-range 5. Well, if a mid-range 5 or a 5 struck off the west coast, it would make a lot more sense why the 5.7 struck interior. So, how many people are in here right now? 544 people. I guarantee you there's more people in the region than 544. And I guarantee you a lot of people got up and turned on the news. If you want to, please post my live stream over on social media right now. So, go to Facebook, go to Twitter, go to any one of your sources and share the link that is up top. Or my moderators can drop in the gaming link to the chat room. And any one of my moderators, you'll see a wrench next to their name, and they could drop a link into the chat room for the gaming chat. People can share it out to everybody instantly and say, look, we're covering this. We're going to keep covering this. Right now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to save this whole update that I just did. I'm going to go save it on my YouTube channel right now. Then I'm going to come back in here in 10 minutes and do another update as we get the new information on the seismic activity, if a new earthquake strikes, etc. So far, be aware. You have 10 minutes to share the link and tell them I'll be back on talking in 10 minutes. That'll be 3:10 a.m. Central Time or 1:10 a.m. West Coast Time. And we'll be fully recapping this again, showing the volcanoes, showing the location, and we're going to be watching new movement to strike at this location and over to the east. There is one other additional thing I forgot to mention, Southern California. Now, most of the pressure transfers to the east by southeast. So, this kind of, I don't want to say it completely is going to miss Southern California, but the only excitement I would expect to occur would be at the volcano down south, and that's Salton Sea. Okay? So the volcano down south at Salton Sea may be excited since the volcanoes at the California-Nevada border are being excited, which means that the magnitudes and the swarm back at Salton Sea could go up by a full point. So if we're seeing 3s strike now, that means Southern California 4 potential is likely at the volcano. Not that big of a deal, right? 4 Southern California might shake things up, might get people's attention, might not, but most of the pressure is going to transfer to the east. I noticed somebody in chat asking about the red arrows. The red arrows took me 7 years of research here online to figure out. 7 years of live video making to figure out. This is the pressure transfer map. It's been overlaid on Earthquake 3D
so that we can see where the earthquakes strike in relation to where we figured out that the pressure goes. And we can forecast based upon this. So earlier today, a large earthquake struck off the coast, where our red arrow is. See our red arrow off the coast? Okay, an earthquake struck there earlier today. That put pressure down here to the east-southeast, and it now is hit at the volcanoes. We forecast for a 5.7 to 5.8 earthquake to strike today. And now it's hit. It hit a few hundred miles off from our Warren location, but it's the region, it's totally within acceptable magnitude, acceptable region, and certainly within the acceptable time frame. So be aware. We're looking, and if you want to see that forecast for California, talking about a 5.7, you can go back to last 2 days' videos. So I hope the people there are prepared. And I'm going to go get this video out now. You can share this video when it's saved, the whole update. It's pretty exciting. It struck as I was talking. Or you can also be back in here, and now let's just say I'll be on in 10 minutes. Well, no, now it's 8 minutes. Let's do it at 3:15. I'll be on at 3:10 to 3:15. Okay? So a few minutes, going to go save the video. I'll be right back in. Be safe. Have a plan. Do not be scared. You should be prepared. Being prepared means knowing what to do when that shaking hits. If you're in bed, I want you to think about what happens when all the glass that you have sitting around your house, things fall off shelves, whatever, and you've got broken glass on the floor, and you jump out of bed. Do you have your shoes nearby? Think about it. Have a plan. Be prepared. The people in California, I guarantee felt this. Guarantee felt it, and I guarantee it caused some damage. Now we'll find out tomorrow morning when the sun rises what the actual damage is. And God forbid 1% doesn't take place and that those locations or there's an eruption of some kind. I would say it's less than 1% chance, but the fact that it's a large earthquake striking on the flanks of a volcano, a new 4.0 and some aftershocks are occurring now. This is to be expected. It's a large series of earthquakes. Okay? Will it transfer to the California-Oregon border? Most likely no. The pressure usually only transfers to the east by southeast. Usually. Unless something weird is going on. But our arrows go in one direction and one direction only because like a flowing river, the seismic pressure follows these directions. It's interesting. It took me years to figure it out, guys. And I had to go through the gauntlet. I had to go through the public gauntlet. Oh, boy, if you knew my story. If you're new here, man, I got a story to tell you. Okay, so everybody, much love, much love. This is why I do what I do. This is why I stay up late night. And this is why we get the warnings out to California and to the other areas. Because when we see something coming, we want you to be aware. If I'm a couple hundred miles off, so be it. I'm trying to get it down to a very fine point. But like I said earlier, if I can get it down to a region, down to a magnitude, down to a time frame that's acceptable, that's what I'm looking for. And this fully fits. 5.7, California, in the time frame. Much love, guys. I'll be back in a few minutes. Peace out.